Morning econ class. Sorry I didn't get this out to you sooner. This is a quick review of the free response on that practice test. If you get a couple minutes, I hope you get a chance to watch this before taking your test. The free response question on your test, of course, is going to kind of mimic a AP question in many regards. So I even included the directions as often written on the AP test itself. So you don't have to think, but I'd recommend it. And then, of course, I think I mentioned it in class, but nice thing about nation here, it's normally broken down into different parts, and you can answer those parts as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And it's not like writing a complete essay here. It's really just answering those questions, and oftentimes it'll be a pretty short answer, as you will see. So anyway, we've got Sean and Robert. They're both construction workers. Sean takes 2 work days to tile a floor, 4 days to drywall a room. Robert can tile a floor in 1 work day or drywall a room in 2.5 work days. So part A, create a chart that shows how many floors and rooms each worker can complete in a month. Now the in a month part, I don't think an AP test would actually ask you that. I put it in there because really you kind of want to convert this, the amount of time it takes them to create it, you want to convert that into an output. It's just easier when you're calculating comparative advantage, in my opinion, to look at it in terms of output. And really the amount of output is kind of arbitrary. I could have used 10 days, I could have used 20 days, it doesn't really matter, but I'm using 20, so per output per month. And they can either do rooms or floors, and our 2 guys are Sean and Robert. Oops. So Sean takes him 2 days to do a floor, so in 20 days if he did, floors, so he could get up to 10 floors done or 5 rooms. Robert could do, let's see, 1 day for a room, so he could do, I think I did something wrong there. No, I think I did it right. Let's go back. Sorry, it takes Sean 2 work days to tile a floor. So a floor he could get 10 of them done. Oh, I read that backwards. There we go. Maybe something looked funky. Robert can tile a floor in 1 work day, so that's 20. Or he can drywall a room in 2.5 days, so he could get 8 rooms done. That's all that question part A asks. I would probably take it a step further in my chart just for my own good, because I kind of know where this question is going to go, and I would draw the opportunity cost. So I'm going to do that even though it's not written in the question. Remember, the opportunity cost is what you give up over what you get. So give up over get. So if I do rooms, I give up 10 floors to get 5 rooms. So the opportunity cost is 2 for Sean. For Robert, it's 2.5. So it looks like Sean, despite having no absolute advantages, does have a comparative advantage in rooms. And let's see, for floors, it'd be the kind of reciprocal of that. You'd give up 5 rooms to do 10 floors, or 5 floors per room. Half of a floor per room, sorry. And then 8 over 20 is 0.4, I think. and so Robert has the comparative advantage there. Part B says draw a correctly labeled production possibilities graph for each worker. So part B, let's draw Sean and let's see, make sure you label everything, that's always important. Rooms, floors, and I'm also going to draw Robert. You could probably do this as one graph or two. You could put them both on the same graph. I'm actually going to draw it as two. I don't know why. I always do. Rooms, floors, and we don't have to be incredibly specific here. So Sean 5 rooms or 10 floors or some combination thereof. Notice this is a straight line production possibilities curve. If it said something about increasing opportunity costs, of course it'd be a curved one, and that's, in reality, that's normally the case, although for our simplified version of just Robert and Sean looking at comparative advantage, we're just going to assume that they can easily trade off for either one of those activities. It's easy to set down the drywall trowel and pick up the tiling trowel, and so they're easy to replace. So anyway, I got 8 and 20. There we go. There's two PPF curves. They're not to scale, they're not perfect. Not really looking for that, really looking more for the shape and design of it. So part C, define comparative advantage and identify who, if any, has a comparative advantage. And actually I already did that. In tiling a floor, Robert has a lower opportunity cost. So I actually need another page here. Let me do that a second. So we go C, lower opportunity cost, do write it out, but lower opportunity cost equals comparative advantage. Robert, make sure I got this right, Robert has a comparative advantage in tiling. If I really want to be thorough, I'll put this in there, a cost of 0.4 drywalled rooms per tiled floor, which is lower than we had for Sean's, who has, let's see, and the question did say define comparative advantage and who, if anyone, has a comparative advantage simply in tiling, and then that was Robert. Define absolute advantage, right, and identify who has absolute advantage in tiling and who has absolute advantage in drywalling. In that case, Robert, clearly he can produce more. Robert has an absolute advantage in both. So define it. Absolute advantage is produce more with equal resource. In this case, time. Time is the resource. Whoops, let me spell resources right there. Produce more with equal resources. In this case, again, time is our resource, and Robert can do more of both. Robert is absolute advantage in both. Again, use full words on an AP test just to be safe, but Should Sean and Robert each specialize in one task and trade labor with each other? And the answer to that, of course, because there is comparative advantage. Because of comparative advantage, they should specialize in trade, because they can both be better off. They should specialize in trade because they can both be better off. Oops. Better off. There we go. And lastly, E, part F. Last part says, how would the scenario change if John purchased a new tile saw that made him twice as fast as tiling as before? Well, if he's twice as fast at tiling, before he could get 10 floors done, now he can actually get 20 floors done. And so his new curve I could draw this on the old one, and we had rooms and floors. So before Sean could do 5 rooms, he can still do 5 rooms. Before he could do 10 floors, so this is kind of that old PPF, and now he can do 20. If you do draw 2 graphs, it's always good to show direction of movement, and that's his new PPF. I'll call it 1, and I'll call this PPF 0. So there we go, I drew the new one, and then the last part of the question asks, so we drew it and describe why trade between the two would or would not change. This actually requires quite a bit of thought. If he's twice as fast now, so I'm actually going to quick change color here just so that you can see this. He's now able to do 20 floors, and so my new math here becomes 20. Again, I wouldn't actually recommend drawing on your own graph. Maybe draw a new graph on the test, otherwise it gets really unclear. Becomes 4, and now 2.5 is actually less than 4, and so now Robert has a comparative advantage there, and this becomes 0.25, and Sean actually has the comparative advantage when it comes to floors. So how would it change? To answer the question, Sean now has a comparative advantage in tiling, and Robert has a comparative advantage in drywall. So they change what they specialize in. Yeah, so before Sean was doing the drywalling, and it was Robert who had the comparative advantage and was doing the tiling, right? Because Robert has a comparative advantage for tiling, so he would do it. Now Sean is actually better at tiling a floor, and he has the comparative advantage there. So anyway, video went a little longer than I hoped, but hopefully you can find yourself 10-15 minutes here to quickly watch through any of this that was confusing to you. Good luck.